All right, it's time for our first interview here on the Working Fans Podcast. We're lucky this week we've lined up one of the main referees from Major League Wrestling. We've got Doug Markham. Enjoy this interview and let us know what you think.
All right, hi everybody. This is the Working Fans Podcast. I'm the fan Dave. I'm here with my boy AJ. And we got on today our first interview, Major League Wrestling's #1 referee, Mr. Doug Markham. Doug, how you doing today, bud?
Good, man. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure's all ours. You're here with my buddy AJ as well.
Doug, it's very nice to meet you, sir.
You too, man. I don't know if I'd call myself the #1 MLW referee. I kind of throw that over to Frankie, Frank Gastineau. He's a senior official of MLW, but I appreciate the plug there.
No problem, Doug. Doug.
Got to give my boy a shout out.
Attaboy. Doug, where did you grow up?
Grew up in Huntsville, Alabama, actually. That's where I was born and raised.
Nice. Did you get to work with Bobby Eaton at all?
Do what?
Did you get to work with beautiful Bobby Eaton at all?
Well, I travel with Bobby a lot now. We became friends over the past several years. I do get to hang out with him and travel with him, and so, that's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's always great to be able to pick the brains of somebody who's had that many years of experience. I was lucky. I trained to wrestle many, many years ago and worked for 10 years. I trained with Adrian Street down there in Pensacola. So it was always good to have a chance to pick somebody's brain when you're traveling.
Yeah, Adrian Street, man. I remember, when I was a kid watching him work down in Continental, because being from Huntsville, I was all about any kind of wrestling I could watch, and I got Continental out of Birmingham, and that's kind of when I got introduced to Adrian Street, so I was always a fan of him, too.
So did you grow up on Continental? What other wrestling did you catch your eye, Doug? What got you into wrestling?
Started out, when I was a kid, in Huntsville. Nick Goulas was running that territory, and they would run the Madison County Coliseum every Friday night. And that's kind of how I cut my teeth on the business, so to speak. My dad and mom were friends with Bobby Eaton and Orville Hutto, which was the guy that got me in the business when they were teenagers. They all ran around together, so I kind of from a really early age, 4 or 5 years old, from the time I knew what I was looking at, is something that I was just mesmerized by, and it was always something that I wanted to be involved with.
What made you decide to go in as a referee instead of, say, a wrestler or something of that nature?
Well, the referee thing came about probably when I was about 12 years old. Of course, as a little kid, I always wanted to be a wrestler. The only thing I ever cared about was wrestling when I was growing up. And probably about the time when I was 12, I started noticing Tommy Young. And at the time, I didn't know what a role, was for a referee totally. But I would watch Tommy and see that he was different. He had the facial expressions. He sold all the moves. It was just this guy's different. And I kind of just started watching him and studying him, and that's basically Tommy Young, Earl Hebner, Jerry Calhoun, all those guys I watched growing up. Really, that's how I started wanting to be a ref, is just watching all those guys and studying them.
Did you get to meet Tommy at all?
I have met Tommy a few times. Actually, the first time I met him was at WrestleCade, I think in 2016 maybe. Then I actually got to do a seminar with him in 2017, and then again last year I actually was there with him and Earl Hebner at the same time. We got a picture together because I was this is my two referee idols in the same fucking room at the same time, you know what I mean?
100%. When I grew up watching wrestling in the 80s, it was NWA, WWF, and it was Earl and Tommy were the two referees that stuck out the most for sure.
Yeah, and it's crazy now. Earl, I'm friends with Earl, and it's still, I don't know, it's kind of surreal. He likes me, and he has since day one, and it even though I know him now, it still blows my mind, man.
I imagine.
When we were kids, I got to tell you a funny story, Doug. Dave was a big WWE fan. He did watch NWA also, but I was a big NWA fan. And when the Hulk Hogan thing happened, where you had the twin referees, a lot of people were shocked by it and blown away. But I had actually seen Earl Hebner more with the NWA than I had ever seen Dave Hebner. So for me, it wasn't quite as shocking.
Yeah, a lot of people that, I guess maybe, well, now they do, but I guess back then they didn't realize, that Earl worked for Crockett and NWA, and Dave was the one that was in WWF before. But I mean, that angle is still one of the best ever.
It was great. It's a great angle. The fact that they were able to pull that off was absolutely amazing. Who have been the people who have helped you along the way the most? Would you say it's your Tommy Youngs and your Dave Hebners, or have there been other people, like now you have Court Bauer, who obviously running MLW?
Or is there other people like that got you started maybe?
Oh, man, there's so many people that have helped me since I got in the business that I couldn't begin to, name them all. And, when I first broke in, I was working in Mount Pleasant, Tennessee, and Tim, he was booking that promotion that I was working for at the time, and I got to work with, guys like Dante and Mephisto and Tim Ernesto and Gypsy Joe, man. He would come and hang out in the locker room, so I would get to hear stories about him and stuff that he would tell. And probably, I hadn't even been in the business a year yet, and I got a meeting with Tony Falk, who was running USWO at the time in Nashville at Stadium Inn. And I went up and had a meeting with Tony Falk, and I kind of credit him as giving me my first big break, I guess you could say, because he ran every Friday night, and he would always put the shows on YouTube and all that. And he liked me from day one. And so I started working for him, and I started getting noticed from other people, I guess from the YouTube and word of mouth, that type of thing. And I met a lot of people there at Stadium Inn that I, went on to become good friends with in the business. Wolfie D.
Oh, yeah.
Chase Stevens. There's so many people that I met there at that place for the first time, all because of Tony Falk. So.
Yeah, I got to say, Doug, it's real ironic. Because before you called, me and AJ were watching the second episode of NWA Power, and Tony Falk was actually on there doing a little ad. So
he's such a good dude, man.
Yeah. Now, you've worked with the NWA before, haven't you?
I did.
All right. Any chance you're going to be doing any work with them again? Any of the studio tapings?
I don't know. I'm not going to say that I won't, because that's one thing I've learned in this business is you never say never.
I've heard that.
I worked for the NWA under the Bruce Stark reign, so to speak. I haven't done anything, now with Billy and Lagana, simply because they haven't asked me. I mean, to be honest, they have a great crew, Robert King and Brian Hefner, two of the best. I'm friends with both of them. If the offer's there, then yeah, I'll do it, definitely. But I had my little run with NWA back when we were doing the deal the way it was then, I guess you could say. But which that was kind of cool for me, man, because growing up on Crockett and NWA stuff like that, that was like a little dream come true, man.
I'll be honest with you, as a former wrestler, I got to work Plant City. I got to work in Alabama. I got to work in Dothan, places of that nature. Up here in the Northeast, I got to work for Yankee Pro Wrestling. And I'm sad that in the times that I worked from 94 until 2004. And in that time, there was no real NWA presence. And that's one of the things that I'm a little bit sad about, is that I never got an opportunity to wrestle for the NWA. So I understand completely where you're coming from. But let's focus on the future now. You're doing a great job with MLW. I know you guys have the Fusion television show, which is amazing. You've got Saturday Night Super Fight coming up November 2nd. That's going to be at 8 p.m. Eastern time with an absolutely loaded card. And one of the things that we love about MLW is that the referees are respected, quite frankly. You guys do a tremendous job in there of actually making sure that the wrestlers are giving respect to the referees. And when it comes to enforcing the rules and stuff of that nature, that goes so far to telling a storyline. And I think that a lot of times that gets lost in some of the major promotions. And I think that it's absolutely amazing the job you guys do. Have you found, being in the MLW, that they are doing a good job of focusing on the reality of wrestling?
Oh, absolutely. MLW is, I'll try to answer the question. Yes, they do a tremendous job. Court Bauer is like one of the best people I've ever worked for, to be honest, as far as being like a perfectionist, and he wants shit done the right way, and he wants the referees to do their job and be an authority figure, and that's a lot of reason, I think, why me and Frankie both get a lot of recognition out of that, not only because it's a national thing, but because we, do our job the way they're supposed to be done.
I mean, I can tell you, Doug, you've done such a good job that you've actually impressed us enough where we wanted to actually get our first interview in, and one of the first people we came to was yourself as a referee and the effect that you're having on that show. So thank you very much for the job that you're doing.
Well, thank you for noticing, and thank you for having me, man.
Hey, Doug, one other question. MLW, I just know they're doing a thing with Crash in Mexico. Have you got to go to any crazy places that you weren't expected to go so far in this career?
So far, no. As far as like out of the country, I haven't worked out of the country yet, but that's something that I'm really hoping happens in the future. I would love to go to Japan. I would love to go to Mexico, Canada. Just, there's several little items on the old bucket list that I haven't checked off yet that I hope pans out in the future. But MLW has definitely been something since I've been with them for a year now, basically. I've missed a couple of shows, but I've pretty much been with them for a year, and I've gotten more exposure in this past year than I probably have in the past 5. And I cannot thank MLW and Court Bauer and MSL enough for everything that they've done for me. The whole crew there at MLW is just amazing. Like the backstage, the agents, the production, just everything, man. It's top notch, and I'm really having the time of my life right now, to be honest with you.
Oh, that's awesome, Doug. Yeah, it's actually one of our favorite promotions too. I mean, I've never seen such a blend of like MMA, luchador, and a lot of like the old school talents just all in one.
Yes, it's I've described it before as like, it's kind of like, to me, it's the old Jim Crockett storylines mixed with an ECW type feel, like, because you have your storylines that go out and they play out and they end up with the way they're supposed to, so to speak. But then you have shows that have the hardcore matches or the bunkhouse matches, like Mance Warner and Jimmy Havoc. They had that one in Dallas that was just freaking great. So there's like a mixture of everything in it, and I mean, honestly, I know this phrase is used a lot in wrestling, but MLW literally has something for everybody.
I would agree.
Absolutely. Well, as we wind this down, Doug, can you do us a favor? Let everybody know where they can get a hold of you. Let the fans know how they can contact you, and that way they can thank you also for what you do. We really appreciate the time you've spent with us today. So please, if you have anything to plug, please let us know.
Well, my social media, on Facebook, just look up Doug Markham. It's my personal page, but I only use it for wrestling-related stuff for the majority of it. I'll throw a joke on there every now and then, but it's pretty much just all wrestling. Instagram is at Doug Markham 123. Twitter is also at Doug Markham 123. And if you would like to pick up one of the shirts that I have on my online store. That would be at whatforapparel.com/D Markham. And at the moment, I have about 5 T-shirt designs on there. Looking to add some more. I got some stuff in the works right now that's going to be good whenever it drops.
Well, Doug, I can tell you this. We're going to go on there and we're going to grab a couple of those T-shirts. We appreciate the time that you've actually spent with us today. We've taken up 20 minutes of your day, and I know you're a busy man. So thank you very much from myself. I'm AJ.
And I'm Dave, Doug. We appreciate everything you did for us today, man. You're the first guy to get this thing started, so we appreciate it a lot, man.
Guys, I appreciate you having me, man. Every minute that somebody hears me talking is either a minute that they fucking hate me or they want to hear more of, and I appreciate you helping me get my stuff out there, man.
Well, have a great day, Doug, and God bless, my friend. Guys, thank you for listening to the 531 here on YouTube this week. If you like what you hear, you can always find us on Anchor FM, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, and on the Apple Podcast where you can subscribe and also give us a 5-star rating. We appreciate you listening. We want your feedback, 531, and if you agree with us, if you disagree with us, we also want you to let us know. And let us know what your 531 would be. Come up with a top 5 and let us know, and we'll tell you why you're wrong. And in order for us to do that, please contact us on Twitter. We're at Fans Working. Facebook page, Working Fans Wrestling Pod. Email workingfanswrestlingpod@gmail.com. It's very important that you actually contact us on these platforms because we want this to be your interactive place to talk wrestling.